in all directions. So those are the three main tools, W, E, and R, that I like to use to what's the word, to create the object. Now I do want to teach you a little bit about how to use all of these tools with a slightly more complex model. So what I'm going to ask you to do is delete anything that we have right here with Supreme. And you're going to say File, and we're going to import this little scene that says Car Start, and we're going to say Import. So this little scene, as you can see right here, is a small little wooden car that we're going to be reassembling in order to practice some of the tools that we just mentioned. So as you can see, we have the little like body of the car, and we have four wheels and two like axles. So I'm gonna press W, and I'm gonna move the body of the car to the center, right around there. Now you can see that it's not perfectly like center, and I cannot zero this out, because if I zero this out, it actually is gonna go back to this place where I placed it. What's the word? I placed it voluntarily. So what we need to do is we need to access something called snapping. I want to be very precise with my movement, and I want to snap this object so that the body of the car rests right there on the center of the grid. How can I do this? By pressing the letter X. When you press the letter X on your keyboard, we're going to access a special thing called the snapping mode, which is this one right here. And this in particular is called snap to grid, which, as the name implies, will snap the object to the grid of the floor. So if I start snapping, I can snap this so that it's right there on the center. So I know now that this guy right here is properly positioned. However, I would like this thing to be facing forward. As you can see, it's kind of like facing backwards. So I'm going to press E, and I'm going to rotate this around. I'm going to look for the amount of angles that I need, which in this case, I believe it was 135. So I'm going to say minus 135. I'm going to hit enter. And as you can see, now my car is ready, and it's perfectly looking to the front, which is what I want. The problem here is that I need to make sure now that all of the other pieces fit as well. So I'm going to grab this little guy right here. I'm going to press E to rotate. And if I rotate this, I know that I need to rotate this in 90 degrees. There we go. And then with W, I'm going to move this, and I'm going to position it right there to give this car a nice little effect. I'm going to do the exact same thing with this one right here. So I'm going to press E. I'm going to rotate around. Again, 90 degrees to make sure it's perfectly flat. And we're going to position it right there. I'm going to go with the next wheel. In this case, I need to go negative 90 so that the flat part of the wheel is on the other side. And then again with W, I'm going to move it to the side. I'm going to try to get it as close as possible. It doesn't matter if for this first exercise we're having issues with the precision of our element. As long as you can get it as close as possible, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to grab this axle, for instance. I'm going to push it and get it to overlap a little bit right there on the holes of the wheels. That's going to give me a good idea of whether or not I'm like really like how precise I am with my movements. I'm just going to move this wheel a little bit right there. And as you can see, this fits way, way better. I'm going to grab this wheel over here, press E, and we're going to rotate this around, minus 90. And I'm going to push it right here. Now, don't try to go with other angles or degrees in rotation. I made sure to only move this in 45 degrees increments. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But for this one, that should be more than enough. This one, for instance, I'm going to rotate. And as you can see, it's 45 degrees. And it should be now perfectly flat. We can press W. And we can position it right here as well. So position it right around there. We can snap it to the grid on X. There we go. So it's perfectly flat. Nice. And yeah, that's actually way, way better. So there we go. We've assembled our little car, and hopefully with this little exercise, you guys will be feeling a little bit more comfortable with movement, rotation, and scale. But we are missing one thing. If we select all of the elements, let's delete the floor. We don't need it right now. If we select all of the elements, you're going to see that elements will have different values in translation, in rotations, and in scales. And that is a problem, because if someone opens the scene and they select everything and they see that there's values, they might try to zero them out. If they zero them out, what's going to happen is all of the car pieces are going to go back to the like unassembled situation that they had. So we're going to have to use something called freeze transformations, which will tell Maya that this is the new like base setup for our little car. To do that, just select all of the objects, and up here on our shelf, we're going to click this option called Freeze Transformations. And this option, as I again said, will make sure that now this is the new default position. So as you can see, if we select all of the parts in the rotations and everything, they will be back to 0. Now I can see that this like upper wheels are floating a little bit, so I'm going to select them with my selection tools. Remember, it's Q for selection, and then with W, I'm going to move them down. And then again, that's new transformation, so I'm going to freeze transformations once again. And there you go. Now, if you imported this properly, I have a little surprise for you. You can press number 6 on your keyboard, and you're going to get the textures of the little car. This is because I have actually created a material for this one before the exercise so that we could see the little wooden material. We'll talk about materials and all of these things later on. If you don't see the material, don't worry. That probably means that you imported things in the wrong way, or maybe you have the folders in a slightly different setup. Maybe you didn't set up the project properly, but we'll talk about this later, and I'll show you how to do the wooden car. So if you want, another like little exercise that I like to give my students is once you've assembled your car, try assembling a different configuration for the car. For instance, we could grab this back wheels right here. I'm going to press R. I'm going to scale them. I'm going to scale them to make some really, really big wheels that are going to be here on the back. Maybe I'm going to push this a little bit to the sides like this. And the axle is going to be like a little bit smaller. And there we go. We got a slightly different configuration. Maybe we'll have 6 wheels. So how can we duplicate an object? If you, if you select a couple of elements right here with Q, let's say this guys, and you press Control D, you can press W to move these elements around. And now we have another set of wheels, which we can also like make a little bit bigger, make the axle a little bit shorter, and we got a new car right here, reusing some of the assets. So have fun with this one. Create your own little version of the car. Maybe you want to grab this guy. Let's Control D. I'm gonna push it up. I'm gonna scale it in. I'm gonna push it down and just, you know, create like a slightly different version. And this is one of the fun things about Maya. Once you understand how all of this works, you're going to be able to create very complex or very cool looking shapes without having to redo a lot of the work, because we just reutilize what we already have right here. So I'm going to save the scene. To save the scene, you're just going to go to File. I'm going to save scene as, and I'm going to call this car finish. In case you want to see it, it's going to be there on your project folders as well. So the car start, again, I can go File, Open Scene, and I can open my car start, and we're going to be back. Let's save this one real quick. We're going to be back with this one right here. If you want to go back to non-texture mode, you can press the number 5 on your keyboard as well. Number 5 is called just like basic mode. Number 6 is texture mode, okay? So there's a shaded mode, and there's a shaded with textures. So yeah, that's it, my friends. And make sure to do this little exercise, assemble the little car so you get used to the movement, the rotation, and the scale of the components. And once you're ready, we're going to jump onto the next part where we're going to be talking about the primitives. We're going to be talking about all of these different guys and how they have specific things that we can use. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one.